We are Finn, Mara, Javier, and Christy, and thank you for tuning in to listen to our podcast. We are so stoked to have you here with us and that you take some time out of your day to hear us discuss any things that are happening in the art world. Without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Let's roll. Question to start the episode, like a fun question.
Oh, dude, I had one too. Let's see. What is it?
Hit me, yeah.
If you could have a coffee date or a dinner date,
They're always date questions.
But I think I know which one you're gonna say. Keep going.
if you could have one date with somebody dead or alive, who would it be? Like a celebrity or
Other than Britney.
other than Brit.
Britney wasn't even my top 10 choices.
True, not top 100 even.
Yeah.
Okay, so question of the week. If you can have coffee with one person, who would it be, dead or alive?
Yeah, a prayer.
But are you saying a date like, oh, am I looking romantically for someone?
It could evolve into that. Like if you
I'm
have,
going to make it romantic.
Okay. But it could be just a coffee, like going to the
okay.
pub or something.
I do have an answer,
okay,
but I need you guys to be open-minded.
don't say Elmo.
This is a
Recently,
family-friendly
I saw-
podcast, Mara.
recently I saw a picture of Stalin when he was young. I don't know if you guys have seen the
one with the
picture.
scarf?
I've got it saved on my phone to look at from time to time.
Yeah, that turned into a meme like a few years ago. Someone discovered that thing.
My God. I would love to go on a date with him.
He's wearing like
He's
a
really
like
hot.
yeah, like some kind of scarf with like squares.
But
You mean
like,
that one, right?
I'll bring it up because I do have it saved. He's so hot though.
I see why you'd like him.
He's absolutely Mara's type. I mean,
Yeah, that one.
Really?
He
I
looks
love
like
hair. I like brunette. He's just
what's the one in One Direction that looks like a narco?
Is that
Harry Styles.
No, he looks like a hippie thing, like the other one, the one that looks like a Colombian warlord. Sake or Melik or something like that.
oh Zayn? Yeah.
Zayn.
Zayn, yeah, he looks like Zayn.
Oh,
No.
Stalin looks like Zayn, yeah.
I don't fancy
I
Zayn.
see why. I see why.
That's my choice. But I don't want to get into the complications of his political beliefs. I'm only talking purely if I'm going on a date with someone based on their looks historically.
Talk
That's
about
it.
with
It should be like,
Just
oh,
what's your favorite
open any
color?
glass lately.
once. I don't think he would go to Pret or to any.
That's a different question. Where would you go with Stalin?
I'd go somewhere.
Red is red, so
I'd go. Do you know where I'd go with him? To Soho House.
Okay. Okay.
I'd
enough, fair
go
enough.
nice rooftop by the pool, couple of picantes or like spice margaritas, and like no politic talk.
I don't
Just
think he
purely.
would drink a spicy margarita.
Yeah.
I don't think he's that guy.
Okay, a
I think he
vodka,
would drink
whatever.
like vodka
I
I
straight
think
out of the
he'd
bottle.
always be like, working on his manifesto.
Okay, but no, I'm not going to fall. I won't fall into the trope.
The
of
never
okay,
published Stalin manifesto.
This
Yeah.
is. I'm only talking about looks. I'm not talking about his politics.
Oh,
Okay.
That's my answer. Okay, who's
So-
next?
okay. Next one.
In complete opposition to Mara, my date would not be based on looks. It would be based on mind, and it's not like even a romantic date. It would be like more of a cool interview. Like I just want to have a conversation with this person. Alexander the Great. I would pick Alexander.
Mm.
Okay.
But romantic. So not romantically.
Well, I mean,
Or
for
maybe.
him, sure. Like he comes from a time where things were different.
I mean,
with
he
humanity.
seemed hot. If you see the mosaics of him, he seems hot.
He was very short. That's why he was drunk the first when he and his generals like drank, and he killed 2 of them because he was drunk. So,
Okay, but that just shows he's passionate.
no, he shows he's short and he gets drunk.
German.
Yeah.
But also he was very, very, very like a very sore loser, and he had these like anger bursts, and he would like kill people like in the spree of the moment, and then he was like, "Fuck, what have I done?"
So why does that interest you?
Well, not that part of him interests me. I'll be sitting like safe and as close to the emergency exit as possible for when he really gets drunk. But I would love to talk about, his vision. Like, you just know the person behind all the myth and the legend, because of course,
Okay,
by
fine.
now Alexander the Great is like in this like pedestal for everybody, and throughout history, all these people are like, oh yeah, we should be like Alexander the Great. But I'm just really curious about how he was like in real life. Maybe he's like, I don't know, he was
No,
like
I get it.
he
He
had a
had a
mustache.
really interesting life and was able to do loads in his short life. So
Yeah.
you'd want to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So you're there for the personality, and also apparently he had good hair. So
Yeah. And if he turns out to be hot, I might go there.
I mean, to say you were with Alexander the Great, like,
Well, yeah,
you could get anyone after that.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
After that. Just stay on the
Imagine that opener neck, like after that, like go to the public, like, hey, you know what I did the other day? Alexander the Great.
Okay, who's next?
Christy, you can go.
Okay. I think it'd be like Hirohito. Oh, actually, the guy who made Ghibli.
Who?
What is that?
Oh, Miyazaki.
Yeah. I just
Okay.
don't know how to pronounce the name, but like I just want to pick his brains. It's so cool. And like,
He's
just
still alive though.
yeah, he is. Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as like, ooh, I'd like to date him. It'd probably be like a nice, not necessarily coffee, possibly matcha kind of vibe. Maybe you can go
Okay,
to a
yeah.
matcha coffee bar or like a matcha cafe where they make like matcha.
You've said match about 15
Who
times.
would
I
have
think we
thought that in a
understand.
matcha place they would make matcha?
Like matcha desserts. And yeah, I just think his work is incredible. And like his stories and how he comes up with things. But on a more vain note, I really want to hang out with Billie Eilish.
Okay, yeah, my sister's like that. She loves him.
Like
Her.
an evening with Billie Eilish.
She's too
Guys,
edgy for me.
I feel my answer now like isn't good, and I
liked it.
I
like
wanna
love-
if I'm talking about intellectualism and asking questions, I'd go on a date with David Bowie.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
With
We can also
an-
talk about his art collection.
yeah. We could talk about his art, and then also like maybe Stalin like later in the night, like when it's a bit moody and darker.
Ooh.
2 dates, 1 night.
Don't know if I want to know him in that kind of atmosphere of like moody and darker. I don't think he does good things then.
Please can you just let me go on my date?
Yeah,
Dean
sure.
has had traumatic experiences apparently with David Bowie.
He'd be like, you want to
What's-
contribute your puppy to the socialist.
But what's your answer, Finn?
I think I would go on a date with Amy Winehouse.
Oh.
Okay, that's interesting.
She'd make you take a lot of drugs, though, probably.
I think he would go there to try to save her, not to be like, okay, fine.
No, I really like her music, and I just
Yeah.
had a chill, laid-back conversation with a glass of wine. I think would be really cool.
Yeah, I
But-
see what you mean.
like
That's
to-
like a good answer.
Yeah.
There's really been a lot of good, crazy answers in this question of the week.
Yeah, very diverse.
Everyone's going to listen to this episode because Finn's got it's going to be like a long talk by him. I'm in bed, like I might drift off a bit.
A retrospective show about Keith Haring here in Brussels. So I thought, hey, that might be a fun episode. That's the reason of why we are doing a more broader episode on the topic.
And it's such a milestone in contemporary
Yeah,
art.
exactly. And especially with like what's happening at the moment, how do we see progress in
And also
society?
how I think people panic when they don't understand an illness, just like now with COVID.
So I'm going to talk about Peter Hujar.
How do you spell it?
Hujar. Yeah.
And where's he
Hujar.
from?
He is born in 1934.
He's born in Trenton in New Jersey.
But he migrated to New York very early in his life because he felt very compelled to the New York art scene in the 60s, and he just wanted to be there because it was his vibe.
Oh, love that.
He was raised on a farm, so his early body of work exists of farm animals and kind of countryside. I mean, they're good photographs, but I think you can really see that it was more for him using the medium of photography. during the 60s, 70s, 80s, he was very interested in kind of the underground culture of the East Village, the gay scene. And there is one image that I really want to talk about, and I think you might have seen it if you not been living on a rock, and it is the cover of A Little Life by Yanagihara. Sorry, if you see
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I have never seen that before.
Yeah.
I do live under a rock.
I haven't actually seen it before. Yeah.
So this picture is by him. The picture is called Orgasmic Men. He did a series in the 70s where he photographed naked men in his studio that were about to climax and captured their facial expression.
His
I did
photography
hear
were
about
in
that.
no, his photography were in masculinities, wasn't it?
Exactly. In the barbecue.
Yeah, I remember because I remember commenting they don't look like they're about to come.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I
But
was like, it looks like he's
trying.
in pain.
Is that an about to come face though?
Maybe he has a condition. I don't know.
How do you have
Well, yeah.
like that as well?
Yeah,
Like-
like.
No one, listeners won't understand. The picture is of a guy who looks like he's semi-crying into his hand.
Yeah, and then there's like other photos in masculinities, and they look even less like they're coming.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Can you
sorry to
recreate some of the
interrupt.
faces?
Anyway,
I don't
No.
remember.
Mara will post a picture on Instagram.
Yeah.
The guy
Brilliant.
is about
Yeah, Mara, we rely on you.
Yeah.
DM me.
So the reason that I want to talk about this body of work is because I feel like it's a very intimate approach as a reaction to the circumstances at that time, where the fear of, friends dying around you, the fear of having the disease and knowing people with the disease, your loved one. And because here he says that through this approach, I am documenting men in their most vulnerable state and in their most raw and authentic state. He was also dating another artist at that time, David Wojnarowicz. They were together during the last years of Peter's life. He died in 1987.
Polish American,
Polish American.
also born in New Jersey, in Red Bank.
His name. Can you pronounce his name?
I don't fucking know. Would
The closest thing to Poland here is Mara.
Wojnarowicz.
What's it look like?
WOJNAROWICZ.
Can you just show it to me on your phone? The last bit is
Wagnarowicz.
Something like that. The reason that I'm bringing up his lover is because he made a portrait of Peter in his deathbed just a few hours before he died of AIDS. And it's this very rough portrait, and it's very different compared to Climaxing Guy. It's not an official body of work, but it is interesting because they both documented each other's
Dying process.
dying process, yeah. And then David died 6 years after.
Is that Peter?
Yep.
And is that David dying?
No, that's the portrait that Peter took, like when he just got diagnosed. But-
Oh fuck.
The reason that he's on the pillow is because it symbolizes loss of strength. You need the pillow to stay up, and he needs to be comforted, and then the harsh lighting kind of represents the rough situation of their love affair at that moment.
Damn.
That
But
fucking sucks, man.
that's why Peter was such an inspiration to Robert Mapplethorpe, which Javier is going to take.
Makes perfect sense. You'll see why.
That's actually all I wanted to say about Peter. I think the reason that I just like his work is because it's such a raw work. And although it's not immediately made because he wanted to document the effects of AIDS, it's because he wanted to, photograph his experience with love and all that comes with it. Unfortunately, AIDS was a big part of that love relationship between David and Peter. The way that he photographed it with his nudes and the very emotional, raw approach really made that stand out.
well, I like the very immediate reaction to what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like something that he did like years later looking back on it. It's
Yeah.
literally like in the moment how he maybe like, even though it was so painful and he didn't know how he was feeling, but just to record something that was going on that had a lot of confusion around it, where people weren't quite understanding. Because at the time it was like a death sentence. Like someone
Yeah.
tells you you've got that, like you wouldn't really have a chance.
Yeah.
So I think it really does capture that moment in history where people were totally confused by it, and they were like, don't touch people who have AIDS, and you don't want anything to do with them because, you know, they can make you sick, because they was unsure how it was getting transmitted so much. And some of it even was just through like sharing needles in hospitals, for example. And also I think it shows like the unfairness. So I think it's so important in educating people, like what it felt like for those who had it.
A little bit off topic, a really good portrayal of how people reacted to people who had AIDS back in like the 70s would be Why Women Kill is a series.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and like so basically it's like 3 different stories from 3 different eras. It's like 60s, 70s, where it was this like seemingly heterosexual couple, and the guy turns out to be gay, and how their immediate friendship reacted to him being gay and then finding out that he's got AIDS. But I think it kind of lightheartedly tackled this unacceptance during that time, and how you like reflect on we now, and that should be how we look at things and how we progress as a society with things that we thought was unacceptable. That's it.
I also wanted to mention that Peter was definitely not famous for his work during his lifetime. His work was often seen as too provocative, because he was really looking and pushing the limits of the dangers of New York at that time, going to burn down piers, going to dark alleys, and finding his subjects there to photograph. So that's why his work was just at that time definitely something that gallerists would just not want, because it was too raw, and it was too vulnerable, and it was too real. The only book that he published during his life was Portraits of Life and Death, with an introduction by Susan Sontag, who is a famous writer regarding thought process of photography.
Also, like art theory in particular, her notes on camp was particularly successful. Have a read on that. It's pretty short. It will make you think about what you're doing right now.
That was published in 1976. And what he did there was portraits of his friends combined with portraits of skulls and graves from the Cilician catacombs, which is kind of strange that they did publish that book, as previously they were like, no, his work is too controversial. And then when he combines portraits of his friends, those were nude portraits as well. I think Susan Sontag has to do with it as well, but yeah, that's Peter.
Plays into that narrative that like there must be something wrong with gay people, and look, now there's this illness that generally it was just thought that it was only affecting them, and they were like, see, and it's like affecting only them, like there must be something wrong with them. So it wasn't helping the situation at all. And I think because it's such an uncomfortable illness to talk about, it was kept, Finn said, you know, like his work wasn't notable, it was kept under the radar, because people just don't want to know about that kind of thing when it's not affecting them, and they're like, well, you know, that's what you get if you are gay and you have sex, so it's not really my problem.
And also, like back then, I feel like sex is also a very touchy topic.
Yeah, it's like less spoken about than it is now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
And obviously in gay marriage, like, wasn't legal, and you know, like there's loads of things like that we don't really think about now, because it's all about like openness and finding your identity at the moment. But at the time it was like, I should keep it hidden because I don't want to be, you know, I don't want anything bad to happen to me. And that's why all of this stuff were like, oh, it was underground, because they could not go out in the open and express these feelings. And even the artist Javier will talk about, Robert Mapplethorpe, he had so much controversy attached to him during his career, even though I think he was known. And but still,
like compared to Peter, he was very successful in that way. He was
Yeah.
like surrounded by really famous people at the time. He had a studio in Manhattan. He was like doing good in life.
Yeah,
You want to
he's-
tell us who your
Yeah.
artist
Who
is?
is your
Because we
artist?
Well,
haven't really
kids.
talked about his name.
This is Robert Mapplethorpe I'm talking about. And he, after hearing what Finn told us about Peter, it makes so much sense that he's an influence, because it's clearly continuing on a legacy of that approach to realness in the suburbs and like in the dark corners of New York. So Robert Mapplethorpe was a photographer, and he was born in New York, and he had a studio in Manhattan, as I just said, and he mostly worked there. He didn't go to the streets like Peter did to find models and stuff, but he did have a lot of controversy with what he was doing, because most of his models and pictures and everything, most everything he did was very erotic, to the point that he would sometimes define as pornographic art. He always had this vision of it to be pornographic, as he called it, so that it would push people's buttons. But his point was always to make art. You know, he was never falling for just arousing the viewer,
Like
and that's it. He always,
sensationalism.
yeah, he always wanted to communicate something and use that erotism as a mechanism to shine a light on the insecurities of a particular group or something like that. And he is very known and distinctive because he mostly, almost always used black and white pictures. He only did an exhibition or a book called Colors, and that's the only time in his career he did use colors in photography. But the rest of the time he always did black and white. Fun fact, he was a very good friend of Patti Smith, the singer. And they did a lot of collaborations. Like, she would take pictures of him, he would take pictures of her, stuff like that. And he did take pictures of very famous people at the time. He did pictures of Iggy Pop, of Patti Smith. I have a list here of everybody. Cindy Sherman, Peter Gabriel, Andy Warhol. So he was in the right circles of people. Unfortunately, he got AIDS, and he would end up dying age 42 in 1989. And the picture I want to talk to you about was taken a year prior to this. It's a self-portrait from 1988, and it's very weird in the sense that we just spoke about how Peter and his partner were documenting their dying processes, and there were these very real pictures of them like lying in bed and suffering and getting closer and closer to their death. And what Robert Mapplethorpe did in this picture was kind of a light-hearted, uplifting way of tackling it. It's a picture where he's basically holding, is his face in a black background, and he's holding a cane, and the head of the cane is a skull, and he's sort of smiling. So he's like aware of the situation. He knows that it's, as we said, AIDS was a death sentence in this time. He's just accepting it, which is very powerful in its own way. And I think it's immensely brave and powerful when you are able to accept that such a fate is coming to you, and you can talk about it and refer to it as, you know, like you can just say, I'm gonna die, and you could take a funny picture with a cane and a skull.
Like they're both acknowledging death. But
Yeah, I
he
mean, they're
is-
both acknowledging, but the thing is that
doing it in a
he's
like-
digesting it in a way that it's like he's turning it into an aesthetic element of his photography. He's not
I
like
guess it's
basing
like
photography on it.
instead of grief, it's acceptance, and
Yeah.
also showing the power of accepting it.
Yeah.
Even though that is gonna suck.
He died a
Yeah.
year later.
But I think then it's more like to people, hey, look, like it's gonna happen, you know, but I'm not scared, kind of thing. Whereas
Yeah.
the other one, you're like, oh my god, this illness, this is what this illness does. Whereas he's like, I don't care. Like, I know it's gonna happen. Like, it's kind of more reassuring to those who don't understand the illness.
Or I like to see it as a way of normalizing it. If you only look at pictures of people in that moment, like very prior to death, when they were really skinny and pale and
Like
basically hours
emaciated.
from death, you know, you forget that people with AIDS go for ages like being normal before getting to that
Yeah.
state of being completely, you know, lying in bed and not
Basically
doing anything.
destroyed by the virus.
Yeah, and
internally,
Robert Mapplethorpe
yeah.
did was, I'm still me and alive, but I'm gonna die, which is another powerful way of talking about it. Maybe this is a personal way of looking at it, but when you look at the pictures of a dying process, such as the one with Peter, you know, this like journey that takes a long toll on the patient eye after a long suffering period. With Mapplethorpe, it's more like he just died. That he's like himself, but suddenly his life is completely cut short.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the importance in the difference between Peter's portrait of just before he died and Robert Mapplethorpe is that in Mapplethorpe, he looks the camera dead in the eye. But the skull that he's holding is also looking at you,
True.
which then represents the fact that you as a viewer are looking at a dying man. That man that you're looking at is acknowledging that you're looking at him. But also the skull is looking at you.
It's a lot like those Dutch Golden Age still
Veritas.
lifes.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you
Veritas.
put like what's called a memento mori,
Yeah.
which would be a reminder of death, but more so that life is like fickle and short.
And I
So these skulls would be positioned into it, looking at you, so you would remind yourself, "Oh yeah, one day I will die." It's like a
Yeah.
more comfortable way of, seeing and coming to terms with death.
Death always seems to be this unknown, but then it's kind of nice to have someone humanize it in a way.
Yeah.
Or like make it into an object, just like how you said back in like probably like episode 2 or 4 about COVID and how we try to like humanize Corona into
Miss
Miss
Rona.
Rona.
Miss Rona.
Yeah. But yeah, stemming from that, I was just looking Robert Mapplethorpe up and found a few controversies around him, and I thought that was really interesting.
Oh boy. I know that
Yeah.
he had something to do with free speech in the limits of free speech in the United States. So I have no idea
Okay.
what that is,
Oh,
but
that
I know
have
he.
no idea.
I think there was like a problem with exhibiting.
Yeah.
Apparently, he sparked a debate in the U.S. concerning the use of public funds for obscene artwork.
That was the show that gave rise to that whole issue about funding, like public art funding to museums, as well as like his works on tour, which was called The Perfect Moment in 1989. It's a solo exhibition tour.
The year he died, by the way.
Yeah. And the Corcoran Gallery of Art in DC agreed to host the exhibition, and Mapplethorpe decided to show his latest series, which featured pictures of 2 children with exposed genitals, photographs of his ex-portfolio, which featured images of euphorphia. What does that mean?
Of what?
Like
Europhagia.
like does it say euphoria?
No. Oh, okay. Consumption of urine.
Oh nice.
Oh.
Yeah, images of consumption of urine, gay BDSM, and the self-portrait with a bullwhip in his ass, essentially.
I didn't mention that in the introduction, but he is also very known for
His
showing a lot of light in BDSM. Yeah.
portraits, yeah. Corcoran Gallery cancelled the show and terminated its contract with the Institute of Contemporary Art, ICA. That was all in the States. And then the whole controversy kind of intensified. The debate waged both in the media and in Congress surrounding the NEA's funding for projects by some individuals to be inappropriate. The United States Congress thought that these were homoerotic and sadomasochistic. And in June of 1989, pop artist Lowell Blair Nesbitt became involved. He is a long-term friend of Mapplethorpe and revealed that he had a 1.5 million bequest to the museum in his will, but publicly promised that if Corcoran refused to host the exhibition, he would revoke the bequest. So Corcoran refused, and Nesbitt gave it to Phillips Collection instead. So yeah, that's something that's really interesting, and there's more to it. So if you're interested in it, please look it up. And there's also other controversies. So in 1998, the University of Central England was involved in a controversy when a library book by Mapplethorpe was confiscated. A final year undergraduate student was writing a paper on his works and intended to illustrate the paper with a few photographs from Mapplethorpe. But then she took the photographs to a local chemist to be developed, and the chemist informed the West Midlands Police of the
because they'll be like it's pornography.
Yeah, exactly.
We're writing a thesis at the moment.
Yeah.
I was told to look into his controversy with, he had an exhibition and then published a book called The Black Book.
Yeah.
And in that book, it's loads of pictures again in the nude with just black men, and not regarding that, but when there's nude men involved, it's controversy. But when it's nude women, everyone's like, that's chill and cool, don't even worry about it. So but this thing about the black book was that people felt like it was exploitative, and it is just nude men. There's not, anything else really going on, but that it felt a bit like, I think for some people, that photography has often been associated with black people and documenting their bodies, especially like, pre the Civil War or during Civil War. Is there something scientific and different, and
Right.
ethnographically, all of that, their physiognomy, and photography was used for that reason, to record their bodies. And then that he was making a book with just black men and recording their bodies as well. So I think that caused like a huge controversy. The photographs they're not like scientific photographs. They're not like, straight on profile. They're not like that. They are in, wearing, some are semi-wearing clothes, like in different poses, all of that. So it's not the same, but it is interesting to use that connection of photography and black nude men and women, but in this case men, but then we see it through a modern lens. But the thing is, he's not a black artist.
Yeah, but it's also great in a way that he used that to comment on how fucked up it was.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the issue is always like,
he's a white guy.
Is it okay? Yeah, is it okay for a white artist to comment on black issues?
Or it's like, with the whole Mark Twain thing. Because we were talking about books, again, a little bit off topic. If you haven't seen The Green Book, please watch it.
Such a good film.
This thing called The Green Book in the 80s? Was it 80s?
Yeah.
For black men to navigate themselves in the States. It's this black artist who's like an incredible jazz singer. He's going on a tour, and
Tony from Little Italy in New York.
Tony, he's like this white driver / bodyguard who was paid to protect him throughout his tour. So it's kind of like about their journey from New York towards Deep South, where the white people loved the jazz, but then would make him stay in a shitty hotel because he was black.
Yeah, or like have an outhouse for him to go to the toilet. He wasn't allowed in the house, but he had to entertain people.
Yeah.
So
like really applauded for his talent, but then as a person.
Yeah, so it's like, wow, incredible talent. We love your talent, but we don't like you as a person.
Yeah.
Because of your skin color. Mm-hmm. Really amazing, incredible film. Watch it. And I think he was like a bit queer as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, The Green Book. Watch it.
Green Book.
Let us know what you think.
My thesis is on like black artists commenting on black issues during the 90s, and then also if it's okay for white artists to comment on black issues again or during the 90s. Because places like South Africa, for example, only like most artists who came out of it who are well known were white, although the population is mostly black. So things like that I find really interesting, like who's allowed to comment on things, and like even the thing with Robert Mapplethorpe, is it okay that he made that book and had those pictures and that exhibition? I think the constant issue in his career is that like it's nude men, and people like, oh, like he's a guy, like if he's doing nude men, does that, like obviously that means he's attracted to them. Like there's like so many layers of like people not accepting these things.
When you try to communicate something and use this one element, maybe you're tapping into like a controversy without even knowing it. It's very difficult to be aware of everything you're doing while you're doing it. And you can...
And obviously, the moment you are made aware of certain issues, it's really important to, do a research.
Yeah.
before you formulate more of your opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's okay to formulate opinion, but it's important to make an informed opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
But
I
what I meant is that artists sometimes get lost in their creation process, and they really like come up with this idea, and only when it's out there, someone is like, wait a minute, that's actually like racist in this way, and the artist is like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that, and it happens.
The thing is,
Yeah.
if he's a photographer, it's just like he'll know what photography and black nudes, like the relationship. But to me, those photographs do not try and emulate that in any way. It really does seem like what Christy says, hey,
Like
I'm
a
acknowledging
reference.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm acknowledging that. But, you know, I'm showing so many white men, you know, and then he does a whole book of just black men. Some of the pictures with the white men are all like in bondage and stuff. I think if he had done that with a black nude male, like that would have been like it would not have been appropriate at all.
Yeah.
That also brings fetishization of
Tokenism
Oriental
and
men.
all these things.
No,
No?
of Asian men.
Tokenism, sorry.
I make a group of people and you're like, oh wait, I need my group of people to look diverse. So you're like, oh, I'm just gonna put in one black girl and
Oh no,
you know,
I'm not talking about that.
Uh.
I'm talking about the fetishization of Asian men in particular in the gay scene. In our course, there's a guy who is Asian, and he's writing about that on his dissertation, which I find really interesting, about like how the European culture kind of fetishize and orientalize Asian men, that they were often seen as this like feminine object, even though they're heterosexual.
Right.
Okay.
Which I think is also really interesting if you're interested in that.
Because this summer and previous summer in the Guggenheim in New York, it was an exhibition of Robert Mapplethorpe's Black Book. There, when you would enter the exhibition, 2 pictures were really blown up, so it was very
In your face.
Yeah.
in your face. And then once you kind of got past that, he put all the pictures just in a line horizontally. So it really felt like, oh, I have to get through this barrier of these very intense photographs first, in order to kind of look deeper into the works and what they symbolize. So yeah, I think, like you said, it makes you very curious, but you have to kind of have the courage to become curious.
Yeah, which also reminds me of, it was like a late Tate's, but in Switzerland, in Zurich, probably 2016. And it's like this whole section of the museum about sex. There's like paintings and photographs or like of like Merlin Dumas or like, but then back then I didn't know much about art. So I was just like, wow, but we were curious, but then also because we were drunk.
I love that.
because they let us drink, like they let us drink in the museum. They were open till 2 a.m.
Oh, nice.
This is so
Yeah.
cool. You know Boiler Room?
Yeah.
I once went to a Boiler Room collab with the VNA, and we were all dancing in the main bit under the Chihuly thing, and they had alcohol.
Wait, the one painting that I wanted to talk about in that Zurich show is that there's this one painting called the House of Ejaculation.
Cool.
Tell us more.
Yes.
It is just like come everywhere.
like real or like simulated?
No, painting of, and I think it's done that year as well. It's really cool that it's more like an example of how right now it's an accepted thing, and these kind of shows are promoted institutionally because it's important to address these things.
It was a chance for contemporary artists to talk about
like something that was actually affecting them. They were like almost demystifying the rumors around it, but also humanizing the experience of going through it, because I think many people thought, oh, that's not happening to me, it's happening to someone else. And that someone else was, unfortunately, the gay community was or the LGBTQ community was very affected in particular, and they didn't want to talk, and no one wanted to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. We love you. Like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify.
Hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. If you especially loved our episode, we would love it if you gave it a 5-star rating and a review, and even consider taking a screenshot of this episode and posting it on your Instagram stories. That way we know that you loved it and other people can find our podcast as well. If you're not subscribed yet, again, what are you doing? Subscribe and get notified every time we publish a new episode. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Chart Podcast, and if you want to see our faces while we talk, find us on YouTube at Chart Podcast as well. We are Chart, and we'll hope we'll meet you again at some point in the near future. Take care, Chart out.
Love you.
See you.
Love
See you
you.
later.
Bye. Bye.